Hey y'all, welcome to Swamp Talk, where we talk about everything Magic the Gathering. Today we're going to be talking about, well, the bracket system, the ban list, and a streetcar named Braids. I'm your host Ryan.
And I'm Thomas.
And let's peel back a few layers and get into kind of some of the differences here between what's kind of being done and a few things we think can kind of open up some options for some bracket three kind of protection and some additional tools for the CEDH players who want to be completely degenerate. So with braids being unbanned, particular and get added to the game changers, it's really made me think about what is her power in the 99 versus in the command zone. And I think it's a staggering difference. Like, absolutely, you have guaranteed access to this card whenever you want it, or I might have it, but I might not have it. So you can build into it, but it can't be entirely built around it. I think braids in particular at bracket three will be kind of bonkers because you can put her out on turn two, and it's interact or die at that point. Now, obviously, you play out braids and someone swords to plowshare, you're going to be a sad panda. You're going to be the saddest panda who's ever been around. But you get her out and she's not immediately removed. How do you respond to that, Tom?
Whew, yeah, that's a hard one. Yeah, I mean, you made a really good point. You don't build around cards in your deck, right? You don't build around cards in the 99. You build around your commander. So like putting like the dark ritual like cards in your deck, you can put a ton in there when Braids is your commander to really just like spice up the game, really get it out fast. But if you're trying to put in your 99, like you have a very low percentage one to pull not only braids in your opening hand, but also a dark ritual like card. Like that's really really low percentages, and that's you're not really tying those things together. So yeah, you are absolutely correct. Braids in a command zone is so much more powerful than braids in a 99 because we've all seen it. There are games that you don't even see cards in your deck. There are decks that I've played multiple times that cards have never shown up. So it's that's a huge power level. That's a huge power level difference, especially when you're talking about not being able to go find it. Maybe you have no tutors. Maybe you have little tutors that go find it. Really, that bracket three level
Yeah.
kind of changes the game there.
Yeah. When you're at CDH and you're running, I don't know, 7 to 12 tutors, let's call it, your level of consistency is extremely high. You're pretty likely to kind of see either what you want or be able to tutor to it within the first couple of turns with really high consistency. But at bracket three, when tutors are already game changers, you're maxed at three of them. And they're only adding more tutors to the game changers. I mean, we saw on the 22nd, more and more tutors just got added. They might not be the last. There might be more tutors added to that list, making that bracket one through three less and less consistent. Now, I love that, but I think it also really controls the power level. Where at bracket three, if you're only running, especially in black, I mean, obviously you could run three black game changer tutors. You could be that guy. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but that's not going to be the same as some of the higher decks where you're running the Moxes, Ancient Tomb. It's just kind of a different beast. Where are you running the tutors or are you running the really really effective fast ramp? Um,
Yeah.
and when Braids comes out in those rare occasions on turn two in bracket three, someone either swords to plowshares or you're slowly going to be starved to death like you're in a third world country. The game's going to take 10 more turns to finish, but you're going to be begging for the World Health Organization to come and save you
Oh
because,
God, yeah.
because you're just starving to death. It's not fun. It's not fun. But again, if she's in the 99, yeah, she might, in a weird world, once every 1,000 games get played turn two on the ultimate perfect hand that you'll never see again. But more than likely, she's going to come out turn 3, turn 4. People are going to have a little bit of mana. They'll have things to sacrifice. People will get a chance to respond. Um,
Hmm.
it's just not as big of a deal. Um, and I think that the bracket system really kind of offers a great opportunity to kind of protect the bracket 3 players, which I know we've talked about protecting bracket 1 and 2, which I think is kind of what Game Changer List is specifically supposed to do. But I think there's an opportunity to add in a little bit more flexibility um, to the bracket 4 and 5s and take some things off the ban list, make them game changers, but not necessarily allow them in bracket 3. And that specifically comes in the command zone. So if we all of a sudden say every game changer card who could be a commander can no longer be played in bracket 3, but has to be bracket 4 or 5, but they can be in the 99 still. I think it's an incredible proposition on a power like rankings that's not really been explored. Because
Hmm.
again, you see Turgrid in the command zone. I would be upset. I'd be so upset if I'm in a bracket 3 game and there's just Turgrid just, oh yeah, man, I'm just a little happy Turgrid. No, you're not. You're here to crush my spirit and make me beg for mercy. There's no fun to be had here, only pain. But if he's in the
Yeah.
99, I may never see that Turgrid. Like,
Yeah.
it's a totally different like chance. It's a different beast, and I think it's an incredible opportunity by Wizards to potentially add in a little bit more to the bracket system as they move, from beta potentially towards their next version.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Um, Now, I say this, and at the same time, when you really look at all the cards that are legendary creatures on the Game Changers, Jinzi Ataxis, Urza High Lord Arborficer, Turgrid, Braid Cabal Minion, Vorinclex Voice of Hunger, Grand Arbiter Augustin IV, Winota Joiner of Forces, and Yuriko the Tiger Shadow. I don't know if all of those belong in bracket 4 plus as the commander, but I'd say most of them do.
I mean, your
Um,
power level of your deck. Well, I mean, what is in your deck kind of is a deciding factor on a lot of those, right? Like Yuriko being a really good example. Yuriko with certain cards in it makes it much more oppressive as a deck and as a commander. If you're not playing a lot of those cards, right, you don't have really good ways of filtering the top of your deck reliably. Yuriko can be a, like, can hurt a lot, but I've seen a lot of times where like you're pulling lands off the top, right? Like it's not super great. But if I have a way to reliably filter the top of my deck to be able to see like top 3, top 5 cards in my deck, but stack them in however I want, and be able to get a lot of good hits off, yeah, I mean it can be really that can make it problematic. But yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yurko, I think, is probably a great example where either it's kind of super optimized and it's utterly terrifying because they know what their top card is, or they're a degenerate gambler and they just have no idea what it is. And they're like, you know what? I really wanted to lose half my paycheck today. Let's see what happens. Um, it's it's one of those two things. But I've played Yuriko a few times where I see Sensei's Divining Top come down, and I'm like, oh, I'm in danger. The likelihood that they're going to be hitting some 8 cost things, I'm like, oh no, it's in my raccoon wounds.
Yep.
It's just a level of terror. But you know why it's kind of edge case, kind of based on the rest of the deck. I think, for example, Urza High Lord Artificer. I don't know if there's a way to build that deck that's just not really strong. Like you'd have to go out of your way to make a bad Urza deck. It's just so powerful. Um,
Mhm.
I mean, kind of the same thing with Grand Arbiter Augustin the Fourth. Do you want some stacks that also gives you some reductions? Then
Yeah.
it's like playing the IRS. Like, I get to break all the rules and you have to pay me money. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, any time that you can basically get a bunch of things for free while just playing, like, whether or not it's High Lord Artificer, where you're getting all kinds of potential benefits from artifacts, or if you're playing Grand Arbiter Augustine the Fourth, where you're now staxing your opponents out of the game. Like, you're getting something for free that's really hard to deal with as an opponent. So you're kind of like, if you don't counter this, well, we could be looking at some problems here. I am a lot more threatening because of these cards.
yeah, but I think at the same time, why it's one of those things that once they're in the command zone and they're guaranteed, like, it's not will Grand Arbiter appear, it's when, and
Yes.
he will appear at least once, if not 2 or 3 times. You know for a
Hmm.
fact it's gonna happen. But if he's in your 99, yeah, it might happen. It might stacks you out. But if you remove it once, especially if he's just playing white blue, it's unlikely you'll see it again. You might. Don't get me wrong. There is reanimation, but
But if he gets
more.
exiled, you're not gonna see it again either way. Like,
Yeah,
it's
exactly. There's significantly easier ways to. All right, this was a threat. I removed it once. It's gone. Versus, well, it's back in the command zone. We get one turn until, quite frankly, we have to pay so many taxes. We're going to have to file for bankruptcy. It's
hmm
just it's just going to be over. It's the same thing
yeah.
with braids. If braids gets turboed out early, it's just going to starve you. But if braids get played turn 7, is that really the same threat? Turn 7 braids doesn't sound that threatening to me. I mean, by that point, pretty much everybody has at least one land or one artifact, one whatever it may be that they can kind of chuck into the yard, and it's not the end of the world. And by the time it goes around, you've seen a board wipe or a targeted removal. But when braid comes out turn 2 or turn 3, then gets removed and comes out turn 4, oh boy, this is problematic. I really liked my stuff, and you've told me I can no longer have my stuff, but I like my stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things we talked about it in the last episode, which is like a precedent, right? You're trying to set a precedent of, like, do you ban certain cards, or do you put certain cards on, let's say, the game changers list because they have the potential of being oppressive.
Yeah.
Well, let's put the cards on the game changers list that make these cards that are seen widespread onto the game changers list instead. If you looked at this the two ways, especially like if you look at braids, right? Braids being that, any kind of dark ritual effect becomes kind of oppressive, because the earlier that you can get braids out, the worse braids is. And you know, do we look at every single dark ritual effect and say, oh, we got to put all these on the game changers list now because, like, braids is now oppressive? No, 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 no. Like, put braids into a position where braids can be, handled and taken care of. You don't have to worry about it, right? And you only have to deal with one card to make this happen, instead of, like, looking at all of these cards and saying, okay, what are we going to do with these cards now? Oh, we printed this card? Okay, now we put this card in the game. Like, you get to look at one card and just, put it into a place.
Yeah. It's, again, power of the 99 versus the command zone. But I think the beautiful idea of putting legendary creatures as commanders only in bracket 4 or 5, it allows potentially Wizards to look at the ban list and potentially unban a few more things just as game changers, but you only ever see them A in the 99 or B in bracket 4 or 5 as a commander. And I think that gives CEDH players more tools. I think CEDH players don't want rules. Quite frankly, CEDH players might as well be Lord Palpatine. They just want unlimited power and just turbo out, destroy, and that's the game they want to play. And I think potentially if they're the only people who have to see those, and you're never going to go, I'm going to go play a bracket 3 game and have to play against Emrakul, let's just call it, in the command zone or something, if that ever was to be unbanned, would be a good thing. I think it gives Wizards an opportunity to remove things from the bans list and put them in ultra high level of play or in the 99 in bracket 3 and make the ban list shorter. The game changers list would get larger, pretty much guaranteed. But I think it would protect bracket 3, which is something I think a lot of players aren't really considering. I know I wasn't until I really started kind of looking at braids in bracket 3. But it allows the CDH players the freedom that they all want so badly. It would allow Post Malone to perhaps create a legal deck in CDH.
I think this is like a really good, this is really interesting topic, right? Because one thing that I've heard around the bush, around the water cooler, is this idea of bringing back banned as commanders, right? And this thing has been coming and going, and it's been like the solution to the ban list that's been talked about for a long time, right? Golos being one of them. Golos is absolutely, like, people hate it as a commander. It's not as powerful in the 99, but it's still a very powerful card. People talked about bringing back banned as commander to kind of solve that. But that brings in a lot of problems, right? You're putting more rules, more lists, more like just artifacts within the game that can make this really, really hard to understand. But the bracket system is a self-contained list. It's a self-contained artifact that people are probably consulting on a daily basis when they want to build a deck anyway. So being able to update the Game Changers list, being able to update what the brackets look like is self-contained, right? You can integrate this idea of banned as commander into the bracket system without having to have a whole new list of, like, brand as commander sitting on the side here. It's, you get to say, hey, in bracket 3, these, X commander, these X creatures that are legendary cannot be a commander. They can be in your 99, they can't be your commander. But bracket 4, bracket 5, you can put those as your commander whenever you want. Like, I think it solves a lot of the issue that you were talking about, which is this idea that we have so many cards on the ban list, and we want to call that down a bit, but without just letting them free into the world, right? The Game Changers list is great, but it's still so widespread. Between 3 and 5, oof, I mean, you're talking about like really widespread, where 5 is very, very tight with power levels, right? Everyone's playing very close. Bracket 4 is, where the range is a little bit bigger, but you're still within that range. And bracket 3 is very wide range, right? You could have very wide ranging decks of what we consider power levels because of just the way that bracket 3 is set up, where game changers are allowed, tutors are allowed. There are a lot of things that are kind of in there where you can kind of like stack your deck in a certain way, where this idea of money, this idea of who's willing to pay more, can start becoming a problem.
Yeah, I think one of the greatest ways I can agree with you is the fact that a Tarkir Dragonstorm Precom contains Seaborn Muse and is technically a bracket 3 deck out of the box. And that deck is by no means bracket 3. Not even close. It just happens to have one card that technically puts it in that bucket. And it's an interesting beast where, again, I think so many people want some more things removed. They've gotten that first taste. And I was kind of for Wizards removing what they did. And then I really thought about, again, Braids Cabal Minion. And I'm like, man, it's like Turgid. I just don't want to see that thing come down early. Because I either remove it or, quite frankly, I just don't fit to play with my stuff. It's a play pattern that's just devastating. you know, and quite frankly, I think another good example for me is Winota. If I see a Winota and they say it's bracket three, I'm like, I have doubts about your honesty. I'll take the fact that it probably only has 3 game changers in it, but Winota scares me. And I know that's personal opinion, but the card scares me. And it should scare you a little bit too. I know people aren't as scared of it as they once were. But I think it's a terrifying, terrifying card. But I think if Wizards was to introduce this rule where those legendary creatures could only appear in bracket 4 or 5 as a commander, I think it opens up another interesting addition on the bans list currently with companions. I know this is near and dear to your heart, Tom. Specifically, some otter, an otter named Lutri.
Yes.
Who, when you look at the card and you're like, if that's in your deck, that's not special. That's not crazy at all. It's not that interesting in the 99. But when all of a sudden it's your 101st card, oh man, I have a combo piece just chilling in the ether once a game. Like I always have that combo piece. Now, what does bracket 5 pretty much always have? It's combo pieces. So I think if you see Lutri in bracket 5, while it is still strong, don't get me wrong, I'm not downplaying the card. It's basically any Izzet deck gets to just play it. I think it's not nearly as terrifying. And at bracket 3, if for whatever reason the otter player is just like, man, I just want another otter. There's only so many otters. You know, I just want another otter. If Lutri's in your 99, I wouldn't be upset about that. Like, there's literally other cards that do the exact same thing in the 99.
You know, the Command Zone had a podcast where they talked about this, right? They talked about the idea of banned as commander, but what they started talking about was this, you know, concept of what if you were to bring in banned as, you know, other things, right? In certain situations where, you know, a companion came up where Lutri came up in that episode, and they were correct, right? As I built an otter deck, I built an Izzet otter deck, and looking through, doing the research on the deck, trying to figure out how to build this thing, because like really, you know, as an otter, there's limited, right? You're kind of pulling from the bottom of the barrel just to make an otter deck, and so much of the posts were, man, why can't we just unban Lutri, right? Because I just want to put him in my deck. It's it. I don't want to put him as a companion. I just want to put him in my deck because he's an otter and he's a good otter, right? He's just, I get to get rid of one of these bad otters for an otter that I actually want to use. And yeah. I thought the same thing. I was like, my otter deck, I actually would have made a real otter deck if that were true, because I just wasn't willing to make this otter deck where I just like pulled from the whole gambit of otters where it just didn't really work out. But that's, you know, if you could make it so that, hey, bracket 4 or 5, you can have this as a companion, like whatever. We're playing in a way where, you know, you're going to have ways of dealing with it, while bracket 3 is like, nah, okay, you can't have this as a companion. You can have it in your 99, but you can't have it as a companion. And again, with the bracket system, since it's all self-contained, you can build all this stuff into the system itself without having to reference other whole entity lists that exist. So,
yeah, I think it's beautiful where while you're adding a caveat to the bracket, the game changers list, it's very obvious. It's legendary creatures. Lutri is a legendary creature. They can appear in your deck, just not as commander/companion. As companions in bracket 4 or 5, while strong, don't destroy the balance by any means at those levels. While at bracket 3, if all of a sudden you had Lutri as a companion, I would be annoyed with you. That is at bracket 3 very, very strong, just to kind of have that copy effect whenever you want it. But again, bracket 4 or 5 are playing at a higher level of consistency where those kind of companions just aren't as impactful. And I think if you see Lutri in your 99 at bracket 3, while they are good effects, there's other cards that are technically just as good already played. They're not
Mm-hmm.
changing
Mm-hmm.
the 99 math. They're only changing the math as a companion. And again, it makes the band list just a little bit smaller, allows some cool additions potentially in the 99 at bracket 3, and allows the CEDH players to be absolute and utter degenerates. It lets them have all the fun they want and ruin everybody else's fun. But guess what? They chose to play CEDH, so they were there to kick ass and chew bubblegum. But they're
Yeah.
all out of gum.
Yeah, I mean,
I think it's a chance for everyone to win.
absolutely. I mean, people have been talking about this for a long time. Of like the ban list is such a it's so hard to kind of deal with because things are being put onto the ban list for very, very specific reasons, right? Let's go back to Golos. Golos was put on the ban list not because Golos was in the 99, it's because they kept putting him on Commander and because everyone was making Golos decks. Like, that is the reason why Golos was banned. How fun would it be to basically have Golos back, but only in a situation where it is dealable? Like, I can deal with this problem, right? Before the show, you and I were talking, and one thing we were talking about is that as you move up in the bracket system, more blue, more black is played. And because of that, as you move up in the bracket system, more and more answers are there, right? Oh yeah, you want to play Lucci? Counterspell. Awesome. Like, and the amount of counterspells. Or you play braids, right? I kill it, right? I target removal. There's a lot more answers that are being played as you move the bracket system, just because the dominant colors that are being played in those brackets are specifically colors that have answers, right? So
Yeah, yeah, I think you're 100% right. And you know, I'm gonna go ahead and bring in a football reference here. You know, everybody enjoyed watching Tom Brady play, and when he decided to stay on for another season after the Patriots, everyone was like, "Oh, cool, we're gonna get to see him play another team." Until they realized, oh, he's gonna be on the NFC South. He gets to go to the playoffs for free. He didn't even have to try. Congratulations. You were in the worst part. You get to go to the playoffs for free. It's
yeah,
one of those things where when it's front and center there in the command zone / companion zone, whatever you want to call it, it's a threat every game, no matter what, period. It's guaranteed. Versus in that 99, where bracket 3, you're playing with slightly less consistency, maybe it's a threat. Maybe they use one of their game changer tutors to go tutor up another game changer and play it. But they're limited to 3. They just expended 2. They most have 1 more. I think it's a manageable kind of telegraph thing at bracket 3, while giving those bracket 4 and 5 players all the filth that they so desire, and allowing Wizards, my apologies, to really look at that ban list and make some really interesting changes, and
mm-hmm.
potentially really affect the bracket system, because nothing's changed since release about the bracket system. I think this could be a really cool addition as it moves out of beta into something else, or even into beta 2.0, the second iteration of beta, where it finally adds another rule to the bracket system. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
I think it could be really, really fun. Um, and I
I
hope
think
that
another
Wizards
really
throws something crazy out there.
Yeah, I think another really good thought behind it is that we've seen some of this stuff happen, right? They took off some cards off the game changers list to because they just weren't that problematic. What we can see is that things are being added, things are being removed from the bracket system. Because of that, by adding things to the bracket system, and if they become problematic, right? Let's say they go down this route. Let's say that they, hey, we're going to be able to put all of these creatures as your commander, but only in bracket 4 or 5. Oh, we're bringing back Lutri, but they can only be companions in 4 and 5. If things go south, just go roll back. Just change it back. It's not. It won't hurt this because like basically you're changing this fluid system that is just ever moving, and everyone is already on the ride, right? We all are taking the ups and downs as it comes. We all know it's fluid, but when you start adding like separate lists outside the bracket system that become a little bit more hard slated, removing them is harder. We saw this as Bandus Commander in 2009, right? It became a bit of a problem because it was hard to manage, and it was hard to keep track of, and not everyone was reading the list. And when they removed it, it kind of like threw a lot of things into loops, but it made things better. But we can see what making hard line lists can do if if things go south. But the bracket system's fluid. I mean, just change and remove, add, whatever it is that you want to do to the bracket system until you get it right, because we're all in this fluid motion anyway. So it's just keep it going.
Yeah, we said it last week. We'll say it again. I hope they keep hitting us with changes every 3 months. I hope it's this beautiful, living, breathing list that feels kind of like, patch notes for a video game. It could happen. This is buffed. This is nerfed. Let's see it live. It allows you to build different things, do different things, and I think it could be a really, really fun addition to the way people look at their decks. And I hope we see more. And if you're still with us, please like, comment, and subscribe. I hope you've enjoyed our idea. I hope you've enjoyed this. Let us know what you think down below. I'd really love to know if you think we're crazy or if this has some merit and is something you hope they explore. Thanks for watching. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Thomas.
Have a great day, y'all.
We're out.